Yo, what's up YouTube? Go to Grant back here with another one. Now that we've had some time to progress through Season 1, I wanted to go ahead and answer the question that's been most frequently asked on my channel and specifically my previous build guide. Well, is it still viable for Season 1? And if it's not, what would you recommend as the best rogue build going into Season 1, not only for leveling and just all content, but specifically late game, in game, and pushing those high Nightmare Dungeon tiers. And so now that I'm level 96 and I've got pretty much everything I need solidified in order to show you guys my build for this season, I wanted to get this video out so you guys can reference it and see exactly what's changed going from preseason to season with my build specifically, and also maybe give you some tips of what you might need to do with your build in order to not only achieve what you were preseason, but actually achieve feats that are greater than what you were. Like I stated in my last build guide, not only is all the information in this build guide applicable to your in-game build, it'll be able to be applied to your build no matter what stage of progression you're at. Just so you guys know my mindset going into Season 1 here, I wanted to make the most tanky rogue possible, but also retain a lot of the damage, but specifically refine and hone that poison damage that I'd been working on to begin with, as I am once again the infinite poison TB rogue. So I wanted to hone that poison even more than I had previously, but I also just wanted to craft a build that was going to be able to fit standards for everybody, but also I had made it with the intention of keeping progression throughout all stages in mind, meaning I wanted to make it so that it was viable at any stage of your progression. Real quick, if you pay attention to the showcases that I just had on screen, you'll notice that I didn't really lose too much survivability this season, and also I've gained quite a bit of damage. Now, there's a few different factors that go into that. Mainly, I've refined my Paragon board quite a bit, and I've also gone ahead and refined my actual build in regards to my substats and aspects, but with the addition of new things like Malignant Hearts, this rogue build is absolutely better than ever. I've got to say, I don't know if it's the best build, but in my opinion, it's the most enjoyable. So with that being said, why don't we start off and dive straight into the skills. Now going up here to the top and looking at our basic, you guys should already know this, but we're going to pick up Puncture, and we're going to spec that out into Fundamental Puncture. Puncture is probably the best basic simply due to the fact that it procs slow, but also is a pretty much 100% uptime on Vulnerable proc, and Vulnerable is the best multiplicative status effect in the game. Basically every class wants to find some source of Vulnerable and then pretty much blast Vulnerable damage as a stat. Looking at our core here though, you guys should once again know this, as we are the Infinite Poison Twisting Blades build, we're going to be picking up Twisting Blades. Speccing this out into Improved Twisting Blades for now. I did tell you guys in my leveling guide that you wanted to pick up Advanced Twisting Blades, but once again, that's better for early game. If you want to pick up some Daze Effect and some CC, I actually go ahead and pick up Improved Twisting Blades. And that Daze helps me stack my Momentum stacks, which is my key passive, but it also just helps me spread CC on all enemies, and you'll see later on that I actually have a Malignant Heart that takes advantage of this even further than what my class already did with the synergies built in. Now just below that, we have our passive Sturdy. We pick up 3 out of 3 of this for that close damage reduction. At one point, pre-season had Siphoning Strikes, but it got nerfed, so 3 out of 3 Sturdy is our best option here. Moving on down here to our agility skills, we of course pick up Shadow Step for that CC break, moving into Disciplined Shadow Step for the essentially extra Shadow Step due to the cooldown reduction. Methodical Shadow Step is very good for bosses like Uber Lilith for that stun effect. But we of course pick up Dash here. Dash is just the best movement skill in the game. If you're a rogue, you should have Dash no matter what. Speaking of things that are must-have as a rogue, just to the left of that, we have Weapon Mastery. Weapon Mastery is just outright damage multipliers for everybody, no matter what weapon you're using, so I definitely recommend picking this up. With the new nerfs for damage reduction and survivability, I have my hand forced on recommending Dark Shroud to you guys. Now, right here, I'm just now realizing this, but I have this spec'd out to countering Dark Shroud just because I was doing the Avarice the Gold Curse World Boss. Normally I have this spec'd into Subverting Dark Shroud, so you guys are going to want to pick up Subverting Dark Shroud here just for that extra movement speed. And just below that we of course pick up Exploit and Malice. Malice is the most important one, as it is that vulnerable damage that I was telling you guys about and increased stat, so this is very good to pick up right here. Now it should be self-explanatory once again. Since we run the infinite poison build, we're going to pick up poison imbuement, specking out into blended poison imbuement for that extra poison damage. On the note of extra poison damage, we're going to pick up deadly venom right below that. And then to the right of that, we pick up debilitating toxins for the decreased damage from poison enemies. Like I told you guys before, I was running Avarice the Gold Curse, so let me remove this point here and put it over into Alchemical Advantage, as this is what I would normally run. Rounding off our skill tree here, we're going to pick up a few passives, first of which is Innervation. This is going to go ahead and give us a 10% chance to gain 8 energy, just a bit of energy maintenance there. Just above that, we're going to pick up Alchemist Fortune. This is going to give us a 15% increased lucky hit chance. Now we want a lucky hit chance, as that's how we proc our poison pools. But moving on for now, Adrenaline Rush right below that. This is going to give us 15% increased energy regeneration. So that's once again very massive for that energy maintenance. A lot of people were saying they were having a lot of problems with that. So if you are struggling, then go ahead and pick up this, as well as that Innervation passive right above that. On that same note, moving on to the right here, we're going to pick up Momentum, because, well, Momentum gives us energy regeneration too, but also it gives us damage reduction and movement speed. We'll pretty much always have this proc due to the fact that we'll be fighting stunned or dazed enemies all the time, and we'll be fighting enemies and hitting them from behind because of our playstyle as a rogue. Now, since we're on our trees page anyways, we might as well just go ahead and take a look at our Paragon really quick. I'm not going to go ahead and cover everything here, as it would probably take me forever to do so, but I am going to go ahead and cover all the rare nodes and the glyphs specifically, and just talk about them a little bit, as that's the most important information. Getting us started off here, we have the rare node Prime. This is going to give us 20% damage, as well as 4% max life. Moving on up here to our first glyph, we're going to be picking up Closer. This is going to give us Cutthroat skill damage, as well as 10% reduced damage whenever we're wielding a melee weapon, which in our case will be always. Just above this and to the right, we're going to pick up the Lawless rare node, and this is going to give us 200 armor. To the left of that, we're going to pick up the Skillful rare node. This is going to give us 20% damage. Just above this, we're going to pick up our first board, which is going to be the Cunning Stratagem board. Our first rare node is going to be the Finisher node, and then we're going to pick up the glyph Bane. This is going to give us extra poison damage, as well as a 10% chance for our poisoning effects to deal double the amount of damage over their duration. Just to the right of that, we have another 200 armor from another Lawless node. Moving on to our next board here, we have the Eldritch Bounty board, and as you can see, we're going to be progressing up into the rare node Imbuer over here once we get our last couple of points from our last few levels here. But moving on to our rare node down here, Dosage, we're going to pick this up simply to get at the intelligence. For our glyph, which is going to be Tracker, this is going to give us damage to poison enemies, as well as a 33% increase in duration of our poisoning effects. Just below that, we have the Potent rare node, which gives us 30% imbued skill damage. But moving on down here, and taking a look at our fourth Paragon board here, we can see that we're running the Exploited Weakness board. And within it, we're going to go ahead and pick up that Dosage rare node once again, just to get at that intelligence, which is for our glyph Combat, which is going to give us critical strike damage, as well as a 12% chance for our critical strikes to go ahead and restore their energy cost. Just to the right of that, we pick up the Artifice rare node, and this is going to give us a little bit of extra vulnerable damage. But moving on to our fifth board here, we can see that we run the No Witnesses board. Within it, we're going to pick up that Training rare node for the extra max life. And then above that, we can see that our glyph is going to be the Turf glyph. This is going to give us damage to close enemies, as well as 10% damage reduction against close enemies. Just above that, we have the Knowledge rare node, which is going to give us 10% damage. Rounding out our Paragon here with our sixth board, we're going to have Deadly Ambush. We're going to be picking up the Cunning rare node within it, just to get at the strength. And then we're going to pick up the Exploit glyph, which is going to give us vulnerable damage, and an extra way to proc said vulnerable damage, as whenever we do any sorts of damage, we're going to be proccing vulnerable on enemies for 3 seconds. Like I stated before, since we aren't max level, we're going to be taking our last couple of points and going up here and picking up the rare node imbuer as well as the surrounding magical nodes for that extra imbued skill damage. And then with our last points, we're going to be going down here and picking up the rare node resilience for that extra maximum life as well as resistance to all elements. When it comes to your gems, you're going to want to either pick up emeralds or amethysts for your weapons. And then, of course, on your gear, you're going to want to pick up rubies. And you can pick up topazes. However, I personally pick up rubies for the extra max life. Now, the only thing that's changed here is with the addition of the malignant hearts, we no longer run all skulls on our jewelry. We run various malignant hearts that give us different effects that either give us extra damage or survivability. Either way, they're pretty good power increases. For the rogue specifically, I found it's best to run one devious, one brutal, and one wrathful. So looking at our amulet here, we have our devious one, which will negate resource draining effects and give us a little bit of resource regen, which just goes to further the infinite poison twisting blades build. And moving on just below that to our first ring here, we have our brutal heart. This is going to give us 20% damage reduction, which is absolutely massive considering we just took a really big hit to all damage reduction overall. But moving on to our second ring here and our third heart, the most important one, our wrathful heart. Your damage over time effects are increased by 43% for each different crowd control effect on target, meaning we can get anywhere from like 43 to 120 plus percent multipliers on our damage over time effects, which will specifically be the poison in our case. And then the secondary effect to that is whenever you're fighting an unstoppable monster or maybe a staggered boss, instead they take 130 to 146% increased damage from your damage over time effects. So once again, you're getting anywhere from a 40 to 120 plus multiplier on your poison damage. This is an absolutely broken heart, and the only other one in my opinion that I'd even look at is the wrathful heart that gives you all imbuement effects. That one's pretty good, however, in my personal opinion, I think this one's probably going to be the best. It should be self-explanatory since we run the Infinite Poison TB build, however, since I haven't mentioned it yet, we do run the Inner Sight specialization. Now with all that being covered, I want to go ahead and get straight into the aspects and stats. I had previously split these up into 2 sections, however this time I'm going to just go ahead and combine them. I'm going to go ahead and just talk a little bit about the aspects and go over those, and then I'm going to have the stat sheet shown on screen like I had previously, so you can cross-reference the substats that you'll roll on your gear with the ones that I'm telling you you should probably look out for. Getting us started off here with our helm, we're going to have the aspect of Stolen Vigor. This is essentially just going to replace Siphoning Strikes after the nerf for that extra sustainability. Just below that, when looking at our chest piece, we can see that I run the aspect of Disobedience. Now, I had previously been running this on my amulet for pushing high nightmare tiers, however, I haven't gotten that far, and I don't really know how it's going to perform within Season 1 after its nerf, so I just go ahead and run it on my chest piece for now. And if we go down, we can see that now on our gloves, we're running the Edge Masters aspect. This is just going to give us that increased damage based on how much available primary resource we have, which we pretty much always get the max benefit on due to the fact that we have so much energy regeneration and inner sight. As you can see with our pants, we have the aspect of Might, which is going to give us 20% damage reduction, and since we did just have that nerf to damage reduction, this is going to be more crucial than ever. Jumping down to our boots, you can see that we're running the aspect of Shared Misery, which is very good for spreading our CC effects, which not only helps us keep our momentum stacked, but also will allow us to get our maximum benefit from our Wrathful Heart. When it comes to our crossbow, we're pretty much going to want to run the exact same thing, the Blade Dancers aspect. However, like I mentioned before, you do kind of have options here. You could pick up the aspect of Corruption or Edge Masters if you wanted. However, I do find that Blade Dancers is probably going to be the best. Sliding over and looking at our first blade here, we have the aspect of Bursting Venoms. This is going to be the most important one outside of the Blade Dancers aspect, simply due to the fact that this is the infinite poison part of the infinite poison twisting blades build, and the way that you proc it is by simply lucky hitting and then critically striking with poison imbued skills, and what that's going to do is that's going to drop a poison pool, which you then stand in, and while standing in, you have no cooldown or charge limit on your poison imbuement. This aspect is the single-handed sole reason as to why we need so much lucky hit chance and critical strike chance. To the right of that, on our second weapon, we have the aspect of unstable imbuements. This is going to cause an explosion around us whenever we activate an imbuement skill, and so essentially when we're standing in that pool, we can just hit this over and over, just applying our imbuements over and over and over, causing an explosion effect that will spread our poison and essentially help us proc that poison pool further, giving us an infinite cascading chain effect of poison pools. Going up and taking a look at our first ring here, we actually have the new seasonal aspect, Pestilent Points, and this follows the same concept as our last aspect. Every third cast of Puncture is actually going to be poison imbued, so it's just going to give us an extra opportunity to drop that poison pool that we can then infinitely proc poison off of. And with our second ring, we have the accelerating aspect, which essentially just gives us increased attack speed whenever we critically strike with core skills, which just allows us to do more damage outright. Finally here, we have our amulet, and this is going to be the aspect of corruption. Like I said before, I might go ahead and switch out the aspect of disobedience onto the amulet for higher nightmare dungeon pushing. However, when it comes to leveling and mid to late game content, I'd probably say running something like the aspect of corruption on your amulet is the best option. I do believe that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for us though, guys. I'm going to go ahead and scroll through our stats list here, and while we do that, I'm going to leave you guys off on a few final thoughts. I did want to put a world boss showcase in this video, however, with this stupid Barber Malignant Heart, there's literally nothing I could do, and so we'll have to hold off on that. In regards to future plans, I'll specifically be getting to level 100 and then finishing off my Paragon board, gear grinding a little bit to try to get some god rolls, as I literally don't have any and most of my gear is actually on the lower side of things. And then I'll probably just be trying to push tier 100 nightmares or Uber Lilith to get that video out for you guys. So as always, I hope you guys enjoyed and this one helped you out. If you want to stay updated with build guides like this, strategies, and everything Diablo 4, don't forget to subscribe. Drop any feedback or questions you might have down in the comments section, and thanks for watching. Peace out, guys.